On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, crushing your medical debt.
Welcome to the Crushing Debt Podcast with your host, Florida attorney Sean Yesner, where our goal is to help you get rid of the financial bullies in your life.
So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Sean Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law. And as you're listening to this episode on the day of release, it is Thanksgiving Day. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there listening. If you're listening after the date of release, still, I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. I wanted to do a little bit of a different episode today because it is Thanksgiving. Now, it is going to be about medical debt, and it's going to be about my medical debt. So it's not necessarily going to be a legal episode, but it is going to be an episode about what I've been going through recently. Now, don't worry, I am okay. I'm fine, and I'll get to why I say that and how I say that. But yeah, I'm fine. Everything's going to be fine. The medical issues are on their way to being completely behind me. But the goal of the show today is to help people. And I think that's the purpose of my show in general, is to help people. Now, the intent is to help people with their debt, but I think today I want to help people with their health. I want to help them in a different way. We're all human. We all have health issues from time to time, and that's okay. And we work through them and we deal with them. Now, one of the other things that I am very thankful for is the show's sponsor, Sam Cohen at Attorneys First Insurance. He is a great friend of the show. He is a great referral partner. He is a great friend personally and professionally. So if you know an attorney or title company that needs malpractice insurance, please refer them over to Sam Cohen at Attorneys First. You can reach him at sam@attorneysfirst or www.attorneysfirst.com. I know that Sam likes working with attorneys and title companies in Florida and Texas, but can write E&O insurance, malpractice insurance for an attorney or title company anywhere across the country, really. So this week's episode is dealing with health and dealing with my health in particular. And I did debate whether to do this episode or not. And I thought, you know what better way to do it, what better time to do it than Thanksgiving, because it does have, I think, what is a happy ending. So I'll come right out now and say it, is that I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Now, what I want to do is go through how it happened, what happened, what I'm doing to treat it, and some other issues along the way. And part of it is for you all. So, if some of you are experiencing the same symptoms that I experienced, maybe you can go to the doctor a little bit earlier than I did. If some of you are dealing with type 2 diabetes, maybe you can do some of the things that I've implemented here to help your prognosis, help your diagnosis. Now, I will issue the standard disclaimer. I am not a doctor, and what I'm talking about today in the episode works for me, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. So, just keep that in mind. But again, if you have any questions, reach out. If you need some words of encouragement, reach out. I'm happy to talk to you. I'm happy to talk to anybody, really, about this issue. And again, my hope and my goal for this week's episode, not necessarily a legal episode, but something that, if I can help one person catch or reverse their type 2 diabetes, then I think today's show will be a success. So, for those of you that have been listening for a long time, we'll go back to when the podcast was called the Yesner Law Podcast, and I did an episode. It's episode 17. I'll link to that episode in the show notes. But the episode was titled Running and Networking. And the episode was released back in 2016, towards the beginning, obviously episode 17, within the first year of the show. And the point of that episode was that I set goals in terms of my running, and then analogize that to how you set goals in terms of networking. I don't recall if I explained it in the episode, and I don't know that I've really talked about this very often, but I don't know if any of you really know why I started running in the first place. So I was probably about 230, 240 pounds in weight. I stand about 5'9", so I was a little bit overweight. You could tell I was a little bit overweight, not obese, not unhealthy, I thought, but I could have lost a few pounds, and I went to the doctor my sugar was high. Now, I'll get into sugar and A1C. I'll get into all that stuff. But at the time, my sugar was really high. And the doctor said to me, you got two choices. You can start exercising and change your diet, and we can see if we can bring the sugar down that way. Or I can prescribe you insulin shots. Which would you prefer? Now, again, something I've really never talked about on the show is I am afraid of needles. It is one of my phobias, is needles. I hate getting shots. I hate giving blood. I hate going to the doctor. Those of you that give blood on a regular basis, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you because I'm too scared to do it. So the idea of injecting myself with insulin really didn't seem appealing. And so back then, which would have been 6, 7, 8 years ago, I decided to start running. And that's why I started. That's how and why and where I got into running. Now, what I did was I dropped a whole bunch of weight. So I got down to about 180, 190. My sugar levels came down. My cholesterol went down. My blood pressure came down. Everything was where it was supposed to be. The problem is that I got complacent. The problem is that I said, well, I'm running and I'm exercising on a regular basis. So I started to eat more candy. I started to eat more fried foods. I started to eat more breads and rice and pastas and potatoes. There was a period of time where I'd get a Greek salad with no potato salad in it. And then I thought, well, what the heck? I'm going running tonight. Put the potato salad on the Greek salad. I'll eat it all. And I really just ate horribly. I have 2 kids. They're now 10 and 7. Back then they were newborns, and as they got older and they discovered candy, there was candy in the house, there was cookies in the house, there were all kinds of sugary stuff in the house. I wasn't afraid of drinking a regular Coke every once in a while instead of a Diet Coke. I wasn't afraid of drinking apple juice and orange juice and chocolate milk and all these high sugary drinks. And the excuse always was, well, I'm running, so I'm burning off the sugar and it's okay. Well, about a year ago, I started to experience some symptoms. And so what are some of those symptoms? What are some of those things that my body was telling me, yo, you got to get back to the doctor? Now, I'll also add here, my primary care doctor disappeared off the face of the earth. I don't, still to this day, don't know where he is, where he went. You Google him and he's just gone. But I use that as an excuse not to go get an annual physical. And so my wife finally forced me to go see her primary care doctor, and I did. And I'll get into that story here in a bit. But some of the symptoms that I was feeling, I was always tired. Always. I was always tired. I had no energy. I'd go out to the park with my kids, and I couldn't really run around with them. I'd throw the ball around or kick the ball around for a little bit, and then I was done. My running times slowed way down, where it would normally take me 30, 35, 38 minutes to finish a 5K. Now it was taking me 45, 50, 55 minutes to finish the 5K. Some of the other symptoms that I was feeling, I would fall asleep. At the drop of a hat, I would fall asleep. In fact, a buddy of mine would go to his house to watch games. Been on the show before. Brian Levine does condominium and association law. I'd go over to his house to watch the Florida State games, football games, basketball games, whatever. We'd sit outside, partly because it's comfortable out there, partly because this was still in the time of COVID, and I'd fall asleep watching the game. Multiple cups of coffee to keep me going during the day, or energy drinks, which themselves have their own sugar issues. Just low energy pretty much all the time. I'd sit down on the couch at 8 o'clock and I'd fall asleep. I'd crawl into bed to help one of my boys fall asleep, and I'd fall asleep right with him. My wife would try to wake me up, and I was already out in a sound sleep. The interesting thing, though, is that I was also an insomniac. So one of the other symptoms, I think, was insomnia. Now, I think this was twofold. Number one, ton of pressure by owning the law firm and doing everything I need to do for the law firm. But I was having to get up and pee 3, 4, 5 times a night. And so I would only get an hour to 2 hours of sleep at a clip before I had to get up and pee. And not only that, but I had to. In other words, if I didn't get up, there was an opportunity I was going to revert back to my elementary school and junior high days and wet the bed. And so I had to get up and I had to go to the bathroom. And that not only occurred at night when I was sleeping, but it occurred during the day. So if I had something to drink, within an hour to an hour and a half of having that drink, I had to pee. And I was always doing that. And I was always drinking because I had to replace what I was peeing out. And so I was always drinking. I was always peeing. It was a constant cycle. There were times where I'd be talking to a client or a potential client and got to go and have to put the appointment on pause and run to the restroom to pee. Not only that, but I was always thirsty. Like I said, I was getting rid of all the liquid I had taken in, and so I was always thirsty. And sugar cravings, tremendous sugar cravings, where I think I dialed back a little bit and was doing Diet Cokes and zero sugar Cokes and 0 calorie Cokes and zero sugar root beers and all that kind of stuff. But I was craving that sugar that I needed to get it into my body. The other thing, the thing that really started to tip the scales for me in terms of symptoms, is I was losing a bunch of weight. And so I told you that when I was running on a regular basis, when I first got diagnosed 6, 7, 8 years ago as pre-diabetic, I dropped down to about 190. Well, prior to going to the doctor a few months ago, I was down to 150. And to a point that I'd lost so much weight, I didn't even look healthy. I would look at myself in the mirror and think, I don't even look healthy. And people would always ask me, are you okay? You've lost a bunch of weight. And it wasn't this, ooh, congratulations, you look great, you've lost a bunch of weight. It was almost this, you've lost a bunch of weight, do you have cancer kind of a question. And so that all started to concern me as well. So, again, if you're facing any of these symptoms, it could be a ton of things, but my advice to you is to take the opportunity, go see the doctor, have the doctor diagnose it, talk to the doctor about what you're feeling, because as you'll hear as we go on in the episode, I'm going to be okay, and I'll explain that as well. So I remember I went to the doctor. We did a very preliminary checkup. He then sent me out for blood work, which was not fun, but you got to do what you got to do. And so I went and I got the blood tests, and then I went back to see the doctor. Well, when I went to see the doctor, the blood test wasn't back yet. So we had no idea, we just sort of did another preliminary consultation. The blood work wasn't back yet, so there was really nothing to discuss. This was on a Monday. Doctor said, well, I'll call you when the blood test comes in. I said, okay, great. So I go home. Tuesday night, I get a call from the doctor. Now, it was a blocked number, so I didn't answer it because it was night. I was done working for the day. I was probably drinking a beer and relaxing and sleeping, and so I just didn't answer the phone. Doctor left me a voicemail, hey, this is the doctor. I got your blood work in. I'll follow up with you tomorrow. And I thought, okay, great. The next day, Wednesday morning, I'm driving into work, and I get a call from the doctor's office, and they said, the doctor wants to see you at 3:30 today. First thing that went through my mind is because the doctors always give good news in person, and that's sarcasm. They very rarely give good news in person. If it's good news, they'll tell you over the phone. So I said to the doctor's office, you're calling me in the morning at 3:30. I got client appointments. I got this. I got that. Is there any other day? And they said, no, doctor cleared his schedule. You need to be in at 3:30 today. And again, I thought, gosh, doctor wouldn't clear his schedule if it was a nothing. Well, here's the interesting thing. Doc had also diagnosed me with high blood pressure. So that was another symptom of the diabetes, was I'm working so hard to keep my body in balance that my blood pressure was very, very high. And it was in the 150 to 160 range as the top number, and the 100 to 110 number is the bottom number. And those of you that know anything about blood pressure just gasped or were shocked. I mean, that is really, really high. You could have a heart attack or a stroke at any minute high. And so the doctor had put me on pills after the first meeting to try to bring the blood pressure down. Well, when I was at the doctor's office on Wednesday, I didn't eat lunch because I was so nervous about what the doctor was going to say. And again, I'm nervous about what the doctor is going to say. So my blood pressure was really high on that Wednesday when I got to the doctor's office. And he ended up, as a result, kicking up the blood pressure medicine. So he kicked it from 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams. Now, one of the other interesting things is I have a terrible time swallowing pills. And so now here I am having to swallow a bigger pill because I have to take it to keep my blood pressure down. So the doctor says to me, we looked at all your numbers. Your sugar is way high. We have to get it under control. I'm prescribing you 4 insulin shots a day. I'm prescribing you a continuous blood sugar monitor, and you need to take your blood pressure at least 2 to 3 times a day. Well, again, someone who doesn't like pills, someone who doesn't like needles, those continuous monitors have a little, not a needle, but a little tube that goes into your skin to continuously monitor your blood sugar. So I wasn't really excited about that. And then 4 shots a day, quick-acting insulin 10 minutes before each meal, and then a long-lasting insulin before I go to bed at night. And I wasn't excited about it. Again, my blood pressure spiked, but I said, I want to be around for my wife. I want to be around for my kids. I got to do what I got to do. Now, let me get to some of the numbers. My A1C. So A1C is basically a 3-month average of the amount of sugar in your system. And from what I understand, your blood vessels basically last for about 3 months before they die off, and it's a continuous cycle, but the life of a blood vessel is about 3 months from the time it's produced until the time it leaves your system as whatever form of waste. And so what that A1C does is measures the amount of sugar in your system, in your blood vessels over that 3-month period. From what I understand, a normal A1C range should be from about 4 on the low end to about 6 or 7 on the high end. Once you get above 7, you start to get pre-diabetic. Once you get to, I think 9, 8.5, 9, 10, you are full-blown type 2 diabetic. My A1C was 14.2. I was way off the chart. I'm an overachiever. I was way off the charts in terms of my blood sugar. The other number that he gave me, my fasting blood sugar. So when you go to bed at night, your body processes all the sugar, uses some of that stored up energy to keep you breathing, get you into a REM state, wake you up, make your heart beat, make your lungs breathe, all the stuff, the repair, anything, repair any cuts and scabs and, all that kind of stuff. Your body basically does a lot of that at night, from what I've read since my diagnosis. And so your blood sugar should drop as you go through the night because your body's using that energy that's stored up to make all that stuff happen while you sleep. Well, I think as a combination of the insomnia plus just the high blood sugar I had, period, my fasting blood sugar, so when I stopped eating at night and woke up in the morning, my blood sugar was still over 450. Now, a normal blood sugar should be around 100 when you wake up, maybe 80 to 90 on the low end, maybe 110 to 120 on the high end. But again, it needs to be right around 100, and mine was 450. And so basically the doctor looked at me and said, if I hadn't seen you 2 or 3 times prior to today, you'd be leaving my office in an ambulance on your way to the hospital to get some of this stuff under control. We have to be aggressive in order to prevent any further damage to your body. So not a fun day at the doctor's office, and ended up going to Publix that afternoon, picking up all kinds of cool toys. I had to get the blood sugar, the glucose monitor, and let me get to that story as well. So what I mentioned is the doctor said I needed to have 3 shots of fast-acting insulin before each meal, and then the shot of the long-acting insulin at night. The fast-acting insulin he wanted me to be on was called Novolog, and the slow-acting at night was called Lantus. Well, I go to Publix, I go to my pharmacy to pick up all my prescriptions. The insurance company wouldn't approve the Novolog, wouldn't approve the 3 shots prior to every meal. Now, you got to wonder, why is the insurance company not approving something that would get rid of diabetes potentially? Why are they not approving that kind of a treatment? But, be it as it may, contacted the doctor's office. Insurance is not approving it. The doctor's office prescribed a pill instead. The pill is Janumet, is the name of the pill. And Janumet has in it another popular insulin name. I forget what it is. Maybe I'll remember and say it here later in the episode. But so the doctor prescribed these Janumet pills once after breakfast in the morning and once after dinner at night. They did prescribe me the Lantus. And so for the last 45 days or so, I've been giving myself a nighttime shot of insulin, which I'll get into. And they would also not approve the continuous blood sugar monitor. So I had to pick up the kit to prick my finger at that point 4 times a day and monitor my blood glucose, monitor my blood sugar. Well, here's the interesting thing there. The blood pressure monitor itself, the blood glucose monitor itself was free. Then there are the lancets, which are the things that actually prick your finger that cause you to bleed. And then there's strips. So the blood goes on the strip goes in the machine tells you what your blood sugar is. Those strips are the expensive part. To buy those outside of the prescription is about $1 a piece. Now, I had to test my blood sugar 4 times a day. That's $4 a day. That's over $100 a month. Or a month's supply would last me 25 days. 100 strip supply would last me 25 days. Well, there are 30 days in a month. And the other thing is I didn't quite know how to use the machine when I first started. And so I would get a bunch of error messages because I wouldn't get enough blood on the glucose monitor. And so I was burning through those strips like they were a penny a piece, not $1 a piece. Finally got that straightened out. My problem was I was taking the strip and I was trying to go right down the center of the blood drop. And so only half the blood was getting onto the sensor. Where what I do now is I come at the blood drop from the side with the sensor, and then all the blood, and even less blood is necessary to get on the sensor to then read what my blood sugar is in the machine. So now I'm having to prick my finger at that point 4 times a day. I'm still taking a shot once every night. I still have the blood pressure issue going on. And I have to swallow now pills, 4 pills a day. So I have to swallow the blood pressure pill in the morning. I have to swallow a very small cholesterol pill in the morning. And then I have to swallow the 2 Janumet pills, the one after breakfast and the one after dinner. Again, for someone who doesn't like to swallow pills and is afraid of needles, don't become a diabetic. That's sort of my advice to you. If you don't like pills and you don't like shots, don't become a diabetic. Now, keep in mind, now I've got to get my blood drawn from the doctor, not the glucose monitor, but I got to get my blood drawn from the doctor every 3 to 6 months to continue to monitor my A1C levels and all those other things. I had to get another blood test to check my pancreas levels. Your pancreas is what produces insulin. And so the doctor needed to make sure that my pancreas was still working. And so I had to get another blood draw to check my pancreas levels. Now, the good news there, my pancreas is producing insulin on its own. My body is producing insulin on its own. And I'll get to the treatment and how that all factors in here in a minute. So, well, let me talk about it now. What I did was, prior to my wedding to my wife, we did a low glycemic diet to lose weight. Now, low glycemic basically means low sugar. So no complex carbohydrates. So no bread, no pasta, no rice, no white potatoes. So I immediately, the day of the diagnosis, cut all of that out of my diet. I also cut out all processed sugars. So no candy. We had a little cold snap here in Florida. We roasted marshmallows, didn't have any marshmallows. Halloween was a literal nightmare for me because I couldn't take any of the daddy tax on my kids' candy. I haven't had a single piece of Halloween candy. And part of that is by design. I want to get this under control and then maybe reward myself with a piece of candy here or a marshmallow there. Or, my birthday is coming up in December. Maybe I'll have a piece of key lime pie, which is my favorite, for my birthday. But that's it. I want to get everything under control, and then I can reintroduce some stuff in moderation. So immediately cut out all processed sugars. The only sugars that I have some fruit in the morning with my breakfast. Increase the amount of protein. So a lot of fish, a lot of shellfish, shrimp, eggs, chicken, steaks. Protein is fine. I'll eat whatever kind of protein. Especially, I love having the big green egg now. I can cook all the different types of protein. It really doesn't matter. I love it. And then a ton of vegetables. A ton of vegetables. So I'm typically having cucumbers, carrots, peppers, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower. One cool thing I discovered, you can go buy riced cauliflower. And so I buy it by bulk at Costco. and then I take the riced cauliflower and I cook it as if it were hash browns, and then use that as a substitute for hash browns. So I'm having riced cauliflower with breakfast in place of hash browns. It is delicious, and I still get to put some garlic in it. I still get to put a little bit of butter in it. I still get to put my fried eggs on top of it and eat it all and let the egg yolks melt into the cauliflower, and it is fantastic. But that's what I did. Completely cut out all drinks except water, unsweetened iced tea, which has no carbs and no sugar in it. And then as my reward, I think since in the month and a half since I've been diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic, I may have had half a dozen beers. One after I get done running, one during a Sunday football game or a Saturday football game. But I was drinking 2 and 3 beers a day. Never to the point where I was getting drunk, never to the point where I was, unable to drive or anything like that. But still, from 2 to 3 beers a day to 2 to 3 beers in a month and a half period. So totally cut out beer. Now, interestingly, whiskey is okay. It doesn't really metabolize into bad sugar. Clear alcohols, vodkas, those kinds of things, okay for diabetic, I think, for me. So I'm still having my Bloody Marys in the mornings, on the weekends, but severely cut back my beer intake. So what are the results that I've seen from this sort of drastic cold turkey change in diet? So my energy levels are back up. I am not falling asleep on the couch anymore in the middle of the night. I am not getting up multiple times a night to pee. In fact, I think last night I didn't get up at all. I spent the entire night in bed, didn't feel like I had to pee. I got a full night's sleep. My energy levels are back up. Now, here's the other interesting thing. My blood pressure has come down. So now my blood pressure is in a normal range. This morning, just before recording this episode, I took my blood pressure and it was 107/71, which is exactly where it needs to be according to my doctor. Now, here's the interesting thing. It feels low. My body is so used to my blood pressure being so high that now that it's back in a normal range, I actually feel like my blood pressure is low, but I'm sure that's just another adjustment that my body will have to make. One of the interesting things with the Lantus, the shot, the pen, the insulin pen, I started at 10 units, and then I had to check my blood sugar in the morning. If my blood sugar was not below 130 for 3 straight mornings, I then had to kick it up by 2 units. So the first 3 days I took it, my blood sugar was still in the 200 to range, 150. It was coming down, but it was still really high. And so bumped it up to 12 units. 3 days later, up to 14, 16, 18, and I finally got to 20 before my numbers really started stabilizing. When I got to 20, my sugar was consistently in the 100 range after eating, after waking up, after, it was consistently right in that 100 to 130 range, which is where the doctor wanted it to be. So the good news, the doctor said I could cut back on the Lantus shots, and I've now gone back down to 16 units. My blood sugar is still holding in the 100 range. I've got an appointment with my doctor on Monday, and I'm going to see if I can't bump it down another 2 units with the eventual goal of coming off the Lantus entirely, not having to inject myself every night before I go to bed. That's the goal. Now, whether it happens or not, we'll see. But again, that's the goal. I've put on some weight, so I'm back up to about 160 now. I probably want to put on another 5 to 10 pounds, but, now that I'm running again, because recall, those of you that follow me on social media, I'd also hurt my knee. And so as I'm dropping all this weight and people are assuming, before my diagnosis is I'm dropping all this weight and people are assuming that I'm dropping all this weight because I'm running, I wasn't able to run for like 2 months and I was still dropping weight. Well, now my knee has healed itself up and now I'm putting back on some of the weight. And so my weight is going back up. My diet is still that low glycemic, no bread, no rice, no pasta, no potatoes, lots of vegetables, lots of protein, a little bit of fruit in the morning, water, coffee, unsweet iced tea, Those are still the things. And it takes a little bit of discipline. When we go out to dinner, I've got to get, salads instead of, or if I think last week we went out to dinner and I got a cheeseburger, but without the bread. And instead of fries, I got a side salad. So it takes a little bit of discipline. It takes a little bit of planning. You've got to figure out what pills do I need to have on me. I have my blood glucose monitor on me at all times, just in case I need to take it. I've got, the pills that I need on me. The one thing that stays here at the house is the shot, because that's right before you go to bed. So I don't need to bring the needle with me, but, I do have to make sure I plan ahead, and I bring a carton, a Chinese, what they give you the Chinese soup in, those plastic cartons. I bring a carton with me to work that has almonds and pistachios in it, so I can continue to have those snacks. But you just got to plan. You got to plan, what's my day going to be? Where am I going to have lunch? What am I going to have for dinner? What snacks am I going to have? So as I'm preparing the boys' breakfast in the morning, I'm also cutting up vegetables for myself during the day, or refilling the almonds and the pistachio containers, or whatever I'm doing. But everything's moving in the right direction. I didn't necessarily feel bad before my diagnosis, but I feel better now. My energy levels are back up. My weight is back up. My sugar is down. My blood pressure is down. So everything is going in the direction it should. Now, I don't update my numbers formally until January, and then I go back to see the doctor in February. Another thing that's resulted from my diagnosis, so I go back to see my primary care doctor in February. I also have to go see an endocrinologist, which is a diabetes specialist, basically. And that diabetes specialist may change whatever my primary care has prescribed. Hopefully not, since it appears to be working, but maybe. I also have to go see an eye doctor, because one of the things that diabetes impacts is your eyes. So if you don't like doctors, again, don't become a diabetic. It is a completely avoidable disease. Now, I know some people may say it's hereditary, and maybe it is. Both of my parents are diabetic, are type 2 diabetics. But again, if I had eaten better, if I had laid off some of the junk I was eating, I maybe would have prevented the diagnosis, put off the diagnosis for however many more years, whatever. I'd be probably in much better shape than I am now. I did read a book called The Diabetes Code, and I'll put a link to it in the notes here. Now, I don't know that I totally agree with what they said in the book, but what the author of the book advocates is intermittent fasting. Now, I don't really advocate that. For me, I don't know that it'll work. I'm going to talk to my doctor about it before I try it, because then can I still take the pills if I'm going to fast, or should I avoid the pills? If I avoid the pills, is that going to, cause some issues here? One bad thing about the pills, by the way, is that they do tend to upset your stomach a little bit. Never to the point that I've been sick. Never to the point that I've been physically sick. But, there are some times where I need to have a bathroom close by so I can use it. And it's not the best feeling in my stomach 24/7, but I can deal with it. It's not that bad. But again, if I can get off the medicine, if I can get off the shot, if I can reverse a lot of that stuff. Now, this book, The Diabetes Code, does argue that diabetes is totally reversible through intermittent fasting. One interesting thing that I've discovered, one other thing I was doing, is I was having 2 desserts a night, 1 or 2 or 3 sometimes desserts a night, and I was eating dessert 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 10:30, and then going right to bed. Well, now, after I have dinner, I don't eat again until breakfast. So if I have dinner 6:30, 7 o'clock, I don't eat again until 7 to 8 o'clock the next morning. Now, what I've noticed is my blood sugar drops dramatically as a result. Now, even if I eat something that is diabetes friendly, so to speak. So even if I have, a couple of handfuls of popcorn, or a couple of pork rinds are very diabetes friendly, no carbohydrates, no sugar, all protein. But if I have anything to eat after I eat dinner, my blood sugar isn't as low the next morning. So there may be something to this intermittent fasting idea. So I'm going to check it out with my doctor. I don't foresee myself fasting for any extended 24-hour period of time, 36-hour period of time. And some of the stuff advocated in this book is that you want to do a 24 to 36-hour fast 2 to 3 times a week. I don't foresee myself doing that, but I'll talk to the doctor about it and see what he says. But I think right now, with all my numbers going in the right direction, my hope is that at my next appointment, some of these prescriptions get reduced even more. I am now down to only checking my blood twice a day. Once when I wake up in the morning, and then after dinner before I go to sleep. So I'm only checking twice. Again, the pills, I'm only taking the 4 pills a day, the blood pressure, the cholesterol pill, and then the 2 insulin pills after breakfast and after dinner. The shot is coming down in its strength because my sugar continues to drop. This morning I woke up and my sugar was, I think, 105. It's been in the 90s before, which is exactly where the doctor wants it to be, exactly where it should be. I'm still running. I'm still exercising. Those of you that have followed the podcast for a while, I'm helping out my son's soccer coach as the assistant coach. So now I run Monday and Wednesday nights, and I'm out running around with the boys coaching soccer Tuesday and Thursday nights. So I'm getting a ton of exercise. That's continuing to keep my blood pressure down. That's continuing to keep my sugar levels down. And it's something I intend to continue as long as I possibly can. So that's about it for this week's episode. Thank you for indulging me. And again, one of the things that I wanted to do was bring up some of these issues in case any of you out there are experiencing any of these issues. It may or may not be diabetes, but go get it checked out by a doctor. Early detection is so important. I feel like I did detect it early enough that I can overcome it. Certainly I could have detected it earlier, which would have helped. But I still feel, I detected it early enough that I can work to reverse the symptoms and reverse the diabetes. And it may be something where for the rest of my life I have to maintain a specific diet, but I'm dealing with it. So, the title of this episode was Crushing Medical Debt. I will talk a little bit about that. Luckily we have a good insurance policy through my wife's work, who works for the county. She works in the school system. So we have a good insurance policy, but still, the Lantus pens were $390. And you get 5 pens. Each pen has 300 units in it. And so at 20 units a day, that was a 15-day supply. So those 5 pens would have lasted me 2.5 months. Now at 16 units, you can do the math, but still, $390 for the insulin pens. Every time I go to see the doctor, it's a $25 copay, and I've been now 6, 7, 8 times, so probably $200 there. Every time I go to get my blood drawn, it's another $25 copay, so there's 3-4 blood draws right there, another $100. Every time I refill any of these prescriptions, it is, again, whatever the prescription is, $20, $25. So, it adds up pretty quick. I probably spent near $1,000 just in the last month and a half with this diagnosis, just to make sure I've got all the stuff I need to take care of myself. So, again, if you want to get rid of some of your debt, a great way to do it is to get off of whatever prescriptions you might be on, if you can do it safely and if you can do it following your doctor's advice. That would be a tremendous help there as well. So, again, thank you for indulging me. I apologize that today really wasn't a legal episode, but again, my goal here is if any of you are experiencing some of these symptoms, take care of yourself. Go get checked out. Work with your doctors. I want you to be long-time listeners. I want to be a long-time podcaster and attorney. So I want you guys to be, I want to be around to produce content. I want you guys to be around to listen to the content. That'll do it, I think, for this week's episode. I do hope that you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. For those of you that are listening later than that, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever other holiday that you happen to celebrate, a fantastic new year. Let's kill it in 2022. Maybe kill it's the wrong word. But in 2022, my goal is to completely reverse and be done with type 2 diabetes and continue to just monitor through my diet and exercise. So that'll do it for this week's episode. I do hope that at the end of the month you have more money rather than at the end of the money you have more month. And I look forward to talking to you in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.
If you have questions that you think would make a great topic for a future episode, please email Sean or connect with us on social media. Sean Yesner and Yesner Law, PL, are Florida licensed attorneys. The information contained in this week's episode is not a substitute for legal advice. Your situation may differ, especially if you are located somewhere other than the state of Florida. If you have questions, please contact our office or contact a local attorney. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.